Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Bob's Live, our weekly show right here on the internet. And well, we're a day late today. Um, of course, it was Labor Day on Monday, but yesterday I was having some technical issues trying to hammer a few last minute items out that I wanted to put in the show for this week. Because this week we're wrapping up our back to school series. And well, this is going to be a pretty big episode of Bob's Live. So feel free to kind of jump in and out. We're going to be covering quite a few things. But up first, I thought I would show you what I was working on really over the last probably 2 months. Um, I have been working on completely redesigning the educational outreach section of our website. And of course, you can follow us here online on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. But also over on our website at bobsmarket.com, we have just a whole wealth of information. First of all, you can watch this show live there. It's embedded on our website under the Bob's Live section. But we also do weekly educational blog posts, recipes, and just a whole host of other things. But we also offer facility tours and speaking events and workshops and all of that. So over the last few years with COVID, it's been kind of tough to schedule those sorts of things. And the little tiny section on our website that covered tours really wasn't cutting it. So what I wanted to do was really offer everyone from kids up through adults a place where they could go to find resources for planning events and really interacting with us at more of an educational level. I hope I'm not getting too confusing there. So let's jump over to the website. Here we go. So this is our new educational outreach section. And before we just had a simple page that described our tours, but I decided to divide it up because we do a lot more than tours. So now in our educational outreach section, we have, of course, the tour section, a section for workshops and lectures, and then also an entire section now that's devoted to resources for teachers. And then also we have a whole schedule section. So if you have, say, a garden club or a high school group or something like that that wants to come and take a tour or wants one of us to come give a presentation, this kind of creates an easy way to request that. And of course, it's all up to our schedule and what works, and we still have business to run first and foremost. But that creates a way to easily open the door and get that conversation started and start working with schedules and figuring things out like that. Under the tours section, I've divided it up into a few different groups. So we have adult groups. So that's your garden clubs, your master gardeners, different things like that. Then we have middle school and high school and college groups. So that's really kind of the main groups that we target as far as educational groups. And that's also where our resources for educators comes in. And then we also have a section for elementary school and younger. Which the main caveat there is we typically don't offer elementary school tours during the workday. That's just because, small kids and heavy machinery, that's, that's something that we don't want to put together. So usually we offer tours for younger kids after hours. Um, but as a little bit of a consolation, we usually do like a little planting project or something like that. So that way they have something to take home with them. And also, in the age of, well, current situation, we also offer virtual tours. Um, but all of this is under our new educational resource section. And then also I have a section on workshops and more. So also even included a sample lecture that I recorded, which we actually used as a previous episode of Bob's Live. And then a little section about in-store workshops. And then the last thing that I have is the resources for educators. And really, this section of the website I want to continue to grow. Because we support a lot of school greenhouse and garden programs. One of the things that we do is we offer what we call fundraiser pricing, and we also sell our seedling plugs at wholesale prices to high schools. And a lot of high schools will buy our partial trays and our surplus trays, and they'll transplant those and then use those as fundraisers to help fund their programs. So that way their programs are able to become self-sustaining, which, always looks good on budget reports when you're trying to justify your program. I'm a former teacher, so I know how that goes. But I'm also working on adding in, kind of making this a one-stop shop for teachers. So I have links here to some of our suppliers that offer equipment and supplies, especially for educators. And then also a section on lesson planning resources. And that's where we're going to jump in today, because one of those resources that I listed here is Seed Your Future. And Seed Your Future is an organization in our industry that is working to promote careers in horticulture. So let's jump over now to an interview that I recorded actually quite a while back. So let's check that out. Back in July, during Cultivate, I went to a presentation on Seed Your Future. It is an industry organization that works to promote green collar careers to middle school and high school students, because that's an area that's somewhat underserved in schools. I know from when I was in school, in this area, everyone was promoting medical field careers and going into teaching. And I chose the latter. And I have a degree in education. I taught for a couple years. It just wasn't for me. And a lot of you know the rest of the story. I kind of Forrest Gumped my way into my career here at Bob's Market. And I've been here now for almost 15 years at this point. But Seed Your Future kind of hits the perfect intersection for me because it's education and horticulture. So shortly after Cultivate, I contacted the director of Seed Your Future, Jasmine Albaran, and we sat down for a Zoom meeting where she could kind of pick my brain as sort of from the perspective of an educator that works in our industry. And also, I could kind of pick her brain because I, at the time, was working on redesigning the educational outreach section of our website. Now, I got permission to share some clips from our meeting. It's going to seem kind of disjointed and kind of edited together um, because, well, that's just the way it is. But let's hear from Jasmine about Seed Your Future and what they're doing.
As I mentioned in my presentation, I am not from the industry, and it has just been so interesting learning. Every time I saw when I saw a plant, I never thought twice, where did it come from? How long did it take it to grow? Nothing. And then when I first started it in May last year, I went to my first cultivate. I was just blown away at how complex this industry is, how diverse it can be, how international it is. So that has really been a big motivator for me to make sure that young people know all of those things, because most people think of the farmer, the landscaper, and the person cutting your grass. Like, that's what people think of horticulture, and don't realize, one, the amount of technology that's in the industry, the vast opportunities within the industry, and that you can make money as well. So we're trying to help inform the masses of all of that, all of the above. I think that's the fun part, right? Seeing people just light up when they realize this is a business. This is full of different careers and different opportunities. And that's, again, another thing that we always want to highlight. We get so many people that just think of horticulture as a hobby, right? It's just gardening. It's just something you do for fun. I'm just playing with plants. But there are so many wonderful careers that you can have a part of this industry. And I'll tell you, in my last year, I cannot believe, well, I can now, how satisfied people are in these different careers, and how much they love what they do, and how much they want to share what they know with others. The first month I was here, it was like, okay, these people are just nice because I'm new, right? They're being nice. And then 3 months later, everyone is just as chipper and nice. And then 6 months, and then 10 months, I'm like, these are some of the most happiest people I have ever met. And it goes to, you're working with all these beautiful products. How can you not be so happy, right? It's hard work. It's year-round work. But I tell people, it's just something about being in nature and working with nature, and you get to see that you're bringing these things to life, these beautiful plants. It really does impact our physical, mental, and emotional health. So again, that's another motivating factor to try to get as many students into this industry, because I know they will be happy, right, for the rest of their life. I've met many people that said, I found horticulture by accident. I found it as a second career. I found it in my 40s and 50s. So we can get all these career options in front of students sooner than later, so they can realize, oh, wow, I love plants and I can work with plants and make a living. Well, that would just be great to be able to get. And knowing that the horticulture industry needs all of those students, especially as folks are set to retire, how can we get them, the younger generation, learning from them before they retire and soak up all that amazing knowledge?
Yeah, that was something for me. I mean, I went to high school right here in Mason, so 2-minute drive from my office is the high school that I went to, and it's like, I didn't know
this
existed as an option.
I know.
And really, even to branch off of that, with the career track that I sort of picked, because at the time at my high school, you had to kind of pick your career path and then take all the courses that went along with it. And then I ended up teaching at the Career Center in our county, where they had machine shop and welding and all this stuff that I didn't even know was an option. And I'm like, why didn't I know about this?
I know. I think, when we're in school, you hear be a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, those, kind of ones that everyone knows, but no one says go into horticulture. No one says go work in nature. So that's something that we're hoping to change by reaching as many teachers as we can across the country to say, one, we are here developing these tools for you to implement as you're having conversations with students about workforce development, right? We know teachers are pressed for time, strapped for resources, and it is expensive to put these things together. So our hope and idea is we will create resources for industry and teachers to use them freely to educate that next generation of potential employees coming into the industry. Another thing that I really want to work on as well is within our industry, we do a really great job about talking about, be in nature, be with plants, this is how you grow them, this is how you do it. But it stops there. We really got to start talking about, and you can work in this industry, and you can be in IT in this industry, you can be in marketing and HR, accounting, the plant production side, but also those admin jobs. Like you said, you were 2 minutes away from there and had no idea one, it was there, let alone the variety of careers that they had. So that's also something I'm trying to do when I'm out talking to folks.
So, again, I want to thank Jasmine for letting me share this information. And once again, it's Seed Your Future, and their website is seedyourfuture.org. And I definitely recommend going over and checking out their website, no matter whether you're a teacher, a parent, or a student, because they have just a wealth of information over there. But especially if you're a parent that thinks that, your child might be interested in a career in the horticulture industry, or if you're a student that's interested. Because a really neat tool that they have on their website is a career finder tool. So they have a list of 150 different jobs in our industry with descriptions, videos, and then it also takes it a step further of matching you up with universities and colleges that carry those programs. So if you really want to find a career in the horticulture industry, that is an excellent place to start. So again, that is seedyourfuture.org. All right, so yeah, that is a quick introduction to Seed Your Future. So I know most of the people watching aren't teachers, but if you have a child that might be interested in a horticulture career, or if you're looking for a career change yourself, that website and that career finder tool is a great resource. And they're continuing to add more careers to that. Last week, we were down at Marshall checking out the herbarium and meeting with Dr. Pupo, the herbarium curator at Marshall. It has herbarium curator listed as one of the career options right there on the Seed Your Future website. And something that they're working to do is take that a step further. So you can use the little career finder tool, find the career, and then it'll match you up with colleges and universities and programs to, get you from point A to point B, really. And that's something that's hard to do. I remember 20 years ago when I was, that's a long time ago, when I was graduating high school and trying to figure out where I wanted to go to college. And if I had a tool like that, I might have made some different choices. You never know. So that is Seed Your Future. Something that Seed Your Future is doing that we're going to be participating in here at Bob's is their Green Career Week. So that's going to be October 3rd through the 7th. So I'm going to be reaching out to area schools and putting together a program on green collar careers where I can go present it at schools during that week. So that's October 3rd through the 7th. But also during that week, we're still kind of in the early stages of planning this. That's a month away. But on the night of October 6th at 5 p.m., we're going to have a Green Career Night here at Bob's. So we're going to have a presentation, again, on green collar jobs. some light snacks, door prizes, it's always a hit. And also, we're going to do a tour of our facility. So, you don't have to be, a student to come out. If you have students that might be interested in a career in horticulture, I recommend, coming out and checking out what we do here at Bob's. And again, I'm still in the early stages of planning this event, but I'm going to try to see if I could maybe get some people from other horticulture related businesses to come in and also share their career options also. So maybe some representatives from some of our suppliers and different things like that. So I'm going to be reaching out to some people with some more information on this, and I'm going to be updating the listings over on our website. So if you go to tonight's show notes, there's links to Green Career Week, and that's going to get updated as we get a little bit closer to the event. Well, before I move on to the last thing that I wanted to talk about this week, I thought it would be a good time to check on the weather. Because we finally have a break in the rain. Now, tomorrow, there's some rain in the forecast, but it looks like, right now it is beautiful outside. So today is a great evening to get out and do some garden work. And also, Friday and Saturday are looking like they're going to be pretty good days to get outside also. I know at this point I'm probably going to need to bail my yard because I was busy over the weekend and didn't get a chance to get out and mow it early on in the weekend, and then it rained, Sunday and Monday, Saturday too. I can't really remember. This whole weekend just kind of blurred together for me. But yeah, so, and we're starting to see some cooler temperatures too. So fall is definitely right around the corner. Well, the last thing that I wanted to talk about this week is pressing plants. Last week, we were taking a tour of the herbarium at Marshall University. And there, it's like a museum. Well, it is a museum of plants and plant specimens. But you can also press plants for artistic purposes. So having a plant press or making one is a really cool project, and you can kind of make your own art with it. So I actually have right on the other side of my desk right here my plant press from, well, at this point, 17 years ago when I took plant taxonomy. So give me just a few seconds while I adjust some cameras around here, and we're going to talk about pressing plants. All right, there we go. I've got kind of a interesting setup here. Okay, I look pretty good on the camera. I had to wait because there's a time delay between my feed and what the camera's picking up. But here in front of me, I have my plant press from when I was at Marshall. And it actually has a lot less cardboard in it now than when I took plant taxonomy, because each field trip we would go out and collect like 15 to 20 specimens. So I would normally have it like super thick. But I can take this apart and show you how it's put together and how it works. And On my way to work this morning, I stopped at the Robert C. Byrd Locks and Dam. And then I think some of the folks down at the market thought I was nuts because I was there, like, pulling leaves off of some of the trees down there. Um, but I got some leaves to show you. Basically, how you would lay them out on a plant press. And this rope is all tangled up. Where I don't have as many plants in it, I've got a lot of extra rope here. So let me take that and pull it through here. Okay, so the plant press has really just 2 or 3 components to it. First of all, you have a frame. And the frame you can make out of pretty much anything. When I took plant taxonomy, some people had like particle board frames that they used. These I actually made out of some 2x4s that I ripped down on the table saw. So I went like probably way overboard on designing this. I've seen some that are almost like popsicle sticks glued together, which are a little bit flimsy. I like this where it's more sturdy. But I ripped down some 2x4s and then wood glued it together. And then where I went overboard is at each joint, I put a little screw in. And I even took a wood burner and burnt my name into it. Because when I took plant taxonomy, everyone would bring in their pressed plants, and they're in the lab, they have a plant dryer. So it's basically a cabinet with some heat lamps in the bottom, where you can stack in your pressed plants. And you kind of stack them in like this, and that lets air circulate up through and dry out the specimens. So layer 1 is the frame, and you got that on each side. And then you're kind of making sandwiches. So up next, I have cardboard. And yeah, I just noticed this is cardboard from a bookshelf that I used to have in my old house. So it came in a cardboard box. It was a flat pack bookshelf. And yeah. And then in between each cardboard segment, so let me set that down. In between each cardboard segment, you can use newspaper, or, I have access to copy paper, so I just use some copy paper. And you put it on each side of your specimen. Depending on how wet your specimen is, you might want to use some thicker paper to kind of act as a blotter to help pull out the moisture. And then you have your specimen. So this specimen, I believe this is a sensitive fern. That's the common name of it. But this I pressed probably a couple years ago. So this is one that has been in the press for a couple years, and really I just keep this thing stored over in the corner. I want to get it out and start using it more, because what my wife and I would like to do is press plants and then frame them for decoration in our house. At least in a few rooms, we're talking about doing that. Because we both love, like, house plants and just that kind of art. So let's see, I've got that. Let me dig one down through here. Because the next thing that I have pressed, and these, they're actually really, really hard. These might be kind of hard to see, and let me maybe hold it up like that. these are dogwood blossoms. And again, I pressed these a couple years ago. And you can see how the green, it does kind of fade out and the white kind of fades out. Now, I just noticed with this blossom, one of the petals here, that one right there kind of folded over onto itself. So that's where it becomes hard when you're pressing plants, is getting them to lay flat. Something like this that's really three-dimensional is really hard to do. Now this blossom, it turned out perfect. So it's got all four petals perfectly flattened out. It looks really good. And let's see what our last couple leaves are here. Oh, okay. We have, this looks like a sycamore tree. So nice big sycamore leaf. Sycamores, they're kind of interesting because at the base of the leaf, and of course this has been smushed down, but if you pull a leaf off of a sycamore tree, you'll notice that the bottom of the leaf forms kind of a cone. And that's because the bud for the next leaf actually grows right into the base of that. And then when it loses its leaves seasonally, it pushes the old leaf off. So, yeah, sycamore. And then, oh, okay. I was like, when I saw the front of this, I was like, it's some sort of maple, but I don't know what variety. Then I flipped it over. The collar on the back is a dead giveaway. This is a silver maple. And then I also have a tulip tree leaf. So those are the leaves that I have in the press. Yep. Down here at the bottom is the other side of the press. So that's what I have in it currently. But let's say that I wanted to press some fresh stuff. And I'm going to kind of make a mess here and just dump these down on the ground. And we'll recycle a couple pages. Let me jump over here. So yeah, I went out gathering leaves this morning. And some of these, and I ran into this when I took plant taxonomy in college, you want to press the leaves as soon as possible. What happened to me when I took plant taxonomy in college is we always did our field trips in the morning at like 9 a.m. And then I had classes all day. So I never had time to press the plants until evening. And even worse, they were usually in a plastic bag in the trunk of my car pretty much all afternoon. So this time of year, you can imagine what would happen to those plants. So something like these first leaves that I have on top, they've gone like really wilty. These are actually some hydrangea leaves that I picked. But you just kind of lay them out flat. Of course, leaves like this are really easy to lay out flat. Let's see, I've got, I don't know if that's a maple or what. These are definitely maples. Got some of those. This time of year, it's hard to find good leaves. Like if you're pressing them for an art project. Got an oak leaf here. So we'll lay out the oak, this little maple. So we'll lay out these. Again, I need to cut more pieces of cardboard so I have more space. Ideally, you want to press samples by themselves or in their own separate sheets of paper, kind of side by side. And the reason why is, one type of leaf, like I have an oak leaf here it's really papery and crunchy. So it's not going to press as flat as like this little hydrangea leaf that's all soft and dainty. So I don't know if you can hear that. It's actually pretty fuzzy. Um, but yeah, I've got those laying here on my paper. And now we'll put another sheet of paper on top of them. And then a sheet of cardboard on top of that. And then the other half of our frame on top of that. So there is our sandwich. And it might be kind of hard to see on the camera here, but this corrugated cardboard, you know how corrugated cardboard has like little waves in it? I cut it so all of those little channels they're all oriented the same way. So what I could do is clamp this down, take it home, and set it down like on an air conditioning vent, or a heater vent would be even better, to get airflow through it. Because the goal is to carry the moisture away from the leaves and to get them to dry out. So, it takes a few weeks for them to dry out. The longer the better. Again, like this sycamore leaf, I think I pressed it maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It is just like a sheet of paper. So I can, give it a little shake and it's pretty dried out. The other thing that I would recommend doing, and it's something that they do when they're preparing specimens for an herbarium, is you don't want to introduce any fungi or also any little critters that might eat the leaves. So what they do to kill off anything like that is they'll freeze the specimens once they're pressed and dried. And you can do the same thing at home. If you have a chest freezer and you're pressing plants like this, once they've dried out sufficiently, chuck them in the chest freezer for a while, and that'll kill off any little critters that might eat away at these. Now, once you have them pressed, then, the sky's the limit. I've seen people mount these in frames where it's 2 panes of glass, and you can kind of hang them up in a window. You can also just mount them on a piece of blotter paper in a frame so they've got a nice white background. You can also create collages of different types of leaves and flowers. The sky is the limit. Something I would recommend, though, is no matter what you do, keep in mind that they will fade over time. If the frame that you're using doesn't have any type of UV protection. So this green, if it was exposed to just direct sunlight, it would gradually kind of fade out to a brown. And I have a fern at home that I actually framed when I had plant taxonomy, like 17 years ago. And it actually kind of works for it because it faded out to kind of a golden color, but I put it in kind of a golden frame that had kind of a fern leaf motif around it. So it actually works for it. And what I did is kind of a souvenir for the class is I used one of the little labels that we would use in the herbarium and slapped it on the back of the frame. So that's one of my little kind of souvenirs from when I took plant taxonomy at Marshall. But yeah, plant pressing, it is really cool. It's also really seasonal. So there's plants that bloom at different times during the year. Right now, you can get all the fall plants, and you know, you could collect that way. Um, Springtime, you've got all the spring ephemerals that bloom. So, you know, the different flowers that just bloom for like a few weeks in the springtime. It's a great time to get out and collect plants and impress them. I've got in my collection at home and probably stuck in some pages of books here, some spring ephemerals that I picked and pressed. Uh, but yeah, this is a fun project to do. And I would say that you need something like, let me grab it here. Oh, well, I'll grab two things actually. One of them is my notebook from college. So this was actually, it says BSc 416 field notes on the back. But this was my notes from when I took plant taxonomy. And I've got maps of where I collected stuff, and then kind of the file system for all of the samples that I collected. Now, unfortunately, I no longer have those samples. I didn't store them properly, so moisture got to them, and yeah, it wasn't pretty. Don't store them in a garage if you collect plant specimens. The other thing is an identification guide. So this book, it is a big old Horkin book. And it's the second edition. I don't know if there's newer editions now or not. But this is Flora of West Virginia. This has virtually every plant in the state in it. And I still reference it quite a bit, even here at work. But there's a lot easier ways to identify plants now. And one of those is right here, your smartphone. What you can do is you can either download, or if you have an Android phone, it already has it built in. You've got Google. And with Google and the camera, you can do a visual search with Google. So you can open up the camera app or open up the search app and tap on the little camera icon, and then take a picture of a leaf, and then it'll search for that leaf on Google, and it is extremely accurate when it comes to identifying plants. So that's almost exclusively what I use when I'm even out in the garden working now. I grew a huge wildflower section, and I am terrible at remembering wildflower names. So I could be like, oh, it's a pretty wildflower. Wonder what it is, and then scan it, and oh yes, cornflower, obviously. um, so yeah, let me take a look. Yeah, Patty says we did old school in between clear sticky plastic with leaves and glitter. Uh, Granny loved it circa 1967. Framed would be great. How long to dry a plant? That it depends on the plant. So, you've got some plants that are a little bit more wet. So I had that hydrangea leaf. It was real floppy and moist. Moist. Okay. You also have like that oak leaf that was already pretty dry. So it really comes down to the individual plants. Also, like stem thickness, leaf thickness, all of that. Those dogwood blossoms that I had, it took probably a good month for those to dry out completely. And then, also, if you're just kind of binding them up and letting them set in a room, it's going to take longer for them to dry. And if you're using some active means of drying them, they'll dry out faster. When I was in college, we had, of course, in the classroom, we had the plant drying cabinet with lights in it. But in my apartment, I had a heater that its vent was in my kitchen, kind of right at table height for my kitchen table. So I would actually just tie up my plants and lay them on the kitchen table and kind of scoot it over so it was a little bit closer to that heating vent. And that worked perfect for drying out the specimens. Also, tying them down and putting pressure on them is important too. Something that I would probably use now is like some of those little squeezy clamps to clamp around the frame to put pressure on it. I've seen people use ratchet straps on them. What I used when I was at Marshall is this rope. And the nice thing about it was I could tie it off, and I left it long. And what I did is I would actually use the extra long bits to kind of make little straps so I could carry it. And that way I could just throw the entire rack over my shoulder and just go walking across campus with it. But yeah, these are plant press. It's really something cool that you can get into. I know people that collect plant specimens. One of my high school teachers, he had a huge plant collection, and what he does, he would mount them on a sheet of paper, and then like Patty said, he would put them in a 3-ring binder into those little clear pockets. So he had, binders just full of plants organized that way. So that is plant pressing. Let me jump back over to the other camera. All right, so that is plant pressing, and that is the end of our back to school series. And again, we're going to be having the Green Career Week coming up, and I'm going to be posting more information on that. And that is all that I have for this week, and all that I have for the back to school series. Next week, we're going to start moving into fall gardening because it's a little bit cooler out today. Fall is definitely here. I've been making some changes in my garden, getting ready for fall. And, gardening's not over yet. There's still quite a bit that we can do outside, both to keep our landscapes looking nice through fall, but also start to prepare for next spring. So we're going to be talking about all of that over the next few weeks. And until next time, keep growing.